So the thing is like, I've always looked at it in two things, right? I need to put people in a position to replace me, right? And that's through empowerment, that's through training, that's through support, right? Because the reality of it is, and I'm not trying to be like dark, but tomorrow's not guaranteed, and not in like I might die some sort of way, but like something could happen where I can't go to work, or I gotta quit because like something's going on with my family and I gotta take care of them, or there's so many things that happen other than like the idea of like worst case scenario. But if everything is completely contingent on my presence, like I just set that whole team up for failure.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to My Therapist Needs a Therapist. We are back, and I'm one of your co hosts, Alicia Freeman. And we have a special guest, but before we get there, we also have our co host.
Hi, I'm Tamika Thompson, the other co-host on My Therapist Needs a Therapist, the other LPC. I want you guys to welcome a really good friend of ours. His name is Mr. Joe Roller. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Joe Roller, and I'm a therapist. Yeah, nah, seriously. Yeah, so I'm a therapist. I've been in the field since 2015. Been in the current field with addiction and trauma since 2017, and just recently got my LPC-S. So this was dope. We were kind of talking about that earlier. The certificate was a letdown. It had a very small thing on there that said recognize as supervisor. So it wasn't even exciting to put that on the wall, but Texas can figure that out.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, my specialty is trauma. Side piece with that is addiction, and just where I'm at.
Well, I have to add some things to that because he's being really humble, which is a rare occasion. So we're gonna hype him up. We're gonna hype him up a little bit more because he's more than just a therapist. Yes, he does specialize in trauma and substances, but he's also, we're gonna call you a coach, we're gonna call you a trainer, a manager, a creator of programs. Like Joe has at least 6 jobs today.
It's two now, but there was a time it was excessive.
Like 3 and 1 and stuff.
Yes.
Coach, he's also a coach. He's also a mentor. Somebody that will be real with you, and I think that's why we built that friendship. He's always going to be honest. He's always going to be real. He's always going to be somebody that helps you to where you want to be in life. So, yeah. So we'll pump you up a little bit more.
Yes, he's also created programs that are still thriving to this day, which is really important. He's really made an impact in the Austin community when it comes to Austin area community when it comes to substance use and trauma. So we're really excited. He's part of the reason why I do a lot more trauma work now, because working under him definitely opened my eyes to a lot of things, including my own trauma, right? We've talked about that a lot. And speaking of trauma, no, I'm not going to take
Not yet.
Not yet.
No, in all seriousness, we are so happy to have you here, Joe. I know we talked about this since before we actually recorded our first episode on our podcast. So I'm glad and happy to have you as our first guest.
Hey, breaking the mold. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here too, man. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun.
Absolutely. So we have a list of things that we want to talk about. But Joe, do you want to give a little bit more history on kind of just what prompted you to become a therapist? You don't have to go deep into your background if you don't want to, but hey, we're open here. We talk about everything.
Yeah. So I mean, long story short, I mean, I was a really bad kid, ironically, I didn't want to work with addiction because I have a lot of addiction in my family, and grew up in a neighborhood that had a lot of it around. And I just remember like not therapists, professors. Well, I mean, they're technically therapists too, but professors being like, "Hey, be careful with that thing you say you don't want to work with. It's going to be what you're going to work in that." I'm like, nah. Ironically, I had this delusion that I was going to work with troubled teens and not deal with addiction. That doesn't really work out. But yeah, I was a bad kid, and I just wanted to be able to help kids like me. And then I realized like I'm not built to help kids like me. I was very difficult, and so I saw that when I was working with teenagers. My first internship was with teenagers. And I mean, I did good. I felt like it went good, but man, I see why people felt the way they did about me when I was that age. Kids are difficult, man. And I think also like it was too close to home because of what I went through. So I think that was something I had to really look at, you know, and then the world had different plans. You know, I tried to only work with primary mental health. And so I graduated 2015, in May 2015. So that year prior to that, I was doing that internship with the adolescents. And I was like, I'm only going to take a job or do private practice that's primary mental health. And like, it just would not shake for me. And almost a year and a half later, like I still don't have a job, none of that. I mean, I was working, but not in the field. And a friend of mine called me and was like, hey man, you did pretty good with that IOP with the adolescents. We have an opening for IOP. Would you be interested? And I was like, well, what's the program? And he's like, oh, it's a substance. No, not interested. And then I thought about it. I was like, man, I got to get my career going. So like, I'm gonna work, I'm gonna get some experience, and then I'll keep looking for a primary mental health thing. And just a few months later, man, I figured out that's where I'm supposed to be. You know, I was good at it, understood it, which is a little bit challenging for people in recovery or addiction to have a normie, because I'm not in recovery. I've never like struggled with that. I've had my own struggles, but not just with drugs or alcohol like that. And I just got it, and I ended up creating this trauma thing while I was at that IOP. And at that point it was completely solidified. It's like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And it was crazy because as soon as I quit fighting fate, so to speak, like doors just started opening. And then just the creative nature of that also helped open some of those doors. And so, yeah, long story short, that's what it was. I was just a troubled kid that wanted to be able to help other kids, and the world just had a little bit different plan.
And what he didn't tell you all is where he's from.
Oh.
Which is probably
Louisiana.
for some obvious.
I'm from Louisiana. I'm from Lake Charles, Louisiana. Yeah, born and raised. I literally didn't leave until I was 18 and joined the Navy. Did 10.5 years in the Navy. Joined the Navy to be on a ship and get the Navy experience. And I picked a job that doesn't go on ships. So I was a dog trainer. And so I spent all that time not on ships. I did still get to move around a lot, which was part of the plan. But I ended up doing some combat stuff because of my job. And so I did that, and I got hurt. And because of that, I had to get out, because otherwise I had no intentions of getting out. I had like a whole 30-year plan. And then I got out and started going to school. That's not completely true. I did try to like make it shake a little bit as a contractor, as a dog trainer, but it just wouldn't work. It just would not work. Like things just kept getting in the way, life getting in the way. And I was like, man, I'm just going to go to school. Because I always said, you know, when I joined the military, that when this is done, I want to be a therapist. I want to work with kids. So I kind of just took that nod and was like, let's do the school thing. And then also I was intimidated by school because I went to the military and everything like that. But truth be told, I had an 8th grade education. And I walked out of the military with that, you know. Essentially that last little bit, I did some courses and stuff, and I landed an associate's degree right as I was getting out, which is, you know, that's a life changer. You can really open some doors with an associate's degree. I'm being facetious, but that's what it made me think. I should have just went straight for the bachelor's, because I ended up losing some credits behind that. But yeah, I was just intimidated, man. I was like, I got an 8th grade education. I'm like, I think I was 28, going on 29 at the time, and it was like, what am I doing? And then because of my combat injuries, like I really couldn't do the canine thing no more. So it was like, you know, I said a long time ago I was going to do this, so let's do it. And in school, I mean, being not that bad. Like I did pretty good. It's amazing what you can do if you apply yourself and like work through that fear.
Exactly.
Let's pause 1 second. Hold on.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you, Joe, for sharing that. It's awesome to get, you know, some insight. I think I have a pretty good insight into you, but it's awesome to hear more of that. I just want to tell the audience a little bit about how we met, and I won't tell them the first part because I don't know if the audience is ready about the first part. I talked to Joe on the phone and I was like, this ain't the same man I talked to, but I ain't gonna tell y'all about that part of it. But well, you know, we started working for a company, and he interviewed me, and I think pretty much maybe I would say hired me on the spot, maybe a little bit after that, but we just clicked. It was very interesting. the work that he put into the program, working with someone too that works that hard and makes it look fun, too, was exciting for me. And it was a new challenge, and it was in the substance abuse field. So that was definitely new for me. And it's definitely, once I got in there, I was like, yeah, I don't know if I can hang. But being with Joe, yeah, it made it a little bit different, so we were able to connect with some amazing people that was working there, and also that came through the program. I think a lot of us judge a little bit when someone is struggling with something, but when you actually get to know that person and know what they went through or what happened to them to get to that point, it just opens up your eyes and honestly your heart to different things. So I just wanted to give you guys a little bit more insight from my perspective of how I met Joe, and then also too how I met Alicia, because she started there. So do you want to tell us a little bit about, well, I had these little things that happened because I met Alicia too, and I closed the door. I said, "You sure you want to be here?" But we're gonna tell them.
Well, I was gonna tell them. So, well,
Yeah.
Joe also interviewed me as well, and obviously because we're two great women and we're Black. Let's be honest, we needed some diversity.
I think all that was just
We like to make Joe feel awkward as possible, but it never
no.
worked. But in all seriousness, yes, he interviewed me as well. And one thing I told him at the end of the interview, that I had already like Googled him, so I knew what to expect in the interview. Because, like Tamika said, the voice didn't match the person you saw in person.
I was just
But it
like,
made sense once we found
Joe.
out he was from Louisiana. But he's like, "Oh yeah, I know this. We have a really great therapist, and I want you to meet her, and I want you to talk to her." And I'm like, "Okay." So when I went into the office, yeah, that was the conversation. Like, girl, it's kind of crazy. Sure you want to work here? And you know what? I knew right then. I'm like, I was kind of similar to Joe. Well, not kind of. Actually, your story reminds me a lot of like my path to becoming fully licensed as well. Is that once I moved to Texas, I wasn't working in the mental health field or any type of field to continue getting my hours for my license. And so I was like, I need to get into my career. Prior to moving to Texas, I worked with adolescents as well as teens who were dual diagnosis, had substance use and mood and behavior issues. Well, yeah, same thing. But um, that conversation with Tamika made me feel nervous. Like, what am I getting myself into? But also, like, you know what? If she's working here and Joe seemed all right too, although he gonna be my boss, and he was like tried to be real, like, this is what we do. And he wasn't he wasn't as laid back as he actually is in that interview. But I think it was a great start for me. And now I have two people I can call friends. And I'm just happy I've learned a lot from both of them actually. And it's funny because Joe started his career a few years before me, and Tamika started a few years before Joe. But I feel like the three of us still bring a lot to the table. And so um, it was great time working on you, even if it's a short period of time.
Yeah. You heard the last
Man, but
part.
it felt like a lifetime.
It really did.
It felt like a lifetime.
So, okay, now I can say it then. So remember in the first episode, if y'all watched the first episode, we talked about trauma bond. And so that, yeah.
Oh,
Because
it
of
was all
Joe.
me.
No, it was
All me.
because of Joe. If
Yeah.
anything, though, seriously, Joe is the reason why we stayed as long as we did. And he really like covered us and made sure we were good and made sure that we had all the support that we needed. And so yeah, he's a great boss, great manager. So no matter where he goes, I know he's going to be awesome.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it. It was dope working with y'all. And yeah, I'm glad our relationship continued because y'all are dope. So
Yeah.
it's good. But yeah, happenstance that y'all had similarities. But when the opportunity's there and I knew Tamika was available, I'll do that. Cause like I try to paint a picture of like, cause residential treatment is a challenge, period. It's a grind, right? And then what we were doing with like a trauma intensive too, like it multiplied that. And so I try to like paint a picture of like, this is rewarding, but very difficult without scaring people off. And then if like you can talk to somebody else that's already in it, that's not the person that's like trying to get you to fill this position, it can help because I've had people think that I was just like exaggerating, like I was explaining the worst case scenario, and then like 2 weeks later they're like, yo, this is not for me. And then I've had it to where like I didn't like paint a picture, and they're like, I didn't sign up for this, I didn't know this was what it was going to be, you know. And yeah, I mean, I already said it, but residential is difficult because it's 24/7, you know, like those people don't leave, and then their staff there 24/7, like, you know, their lives don't stop because we go home at 5 o'clock, which I think some of us would do. I don't think I did. I don't think I went home at 5, but you know, I'm working through that. It's fine.
I'm glad you
long hours. It was long hours, man. And that's the other challenge with that, is because like the day can go well, and it's like you're like, man, I'm gonna get out of here, and then all of a sudden crisis hits, and it's like, okay, so I'm here till 8, 9 o'clock. Thanks. But I think, to kind of like what we're talking about today, with like the culture of teams and companies and this, that, and the other, like I think creating that environment where people feel supported, to where people have your back and things like that. And then, you know, family's important, boundaries are important, all that's important, right? But also like we got to be very real about where we spend a lot of our time, you know. For example, there's 24 hours in a day, you know, most of us try to spend 8 of that sleeping, right? So I'm left with 16 hours. And half of that I spend at work, you know. So if I'm not going to invest in and take care of the people that I'm spending half of my life with, it's not going to go well. It's just a fact of the matter. So one, it's your job, it's what you're supposed to do, but also it's just the right thing to do, and having the right culture can make a difficult situation feel tolerable, you know. Let's just be real.
So we're all doing something different now. I mean, we're working with similar populations, right? Maybe different age groups, but similar issues. So how would you say the culture has differed from working there as opposed to other companies or jobs that you've had since then?
I think there's similarities, you know, because treatment is treatment. You know, and I've stayed kind of in the same realm of like substance abuse. But I think it starts at the top. You know, it starts at the top, and you know, you can't have absent leadership. You can't have I'm gonna do leadership via the phone, you know, text message, email, stuff like that. Like, you know, it's got to be involved, and not completely to the extent where like I'm gonna do everything for you, right? Because that just creates other problems. And I've done both. You know, I've done all of them, and I've had trial and errors with that, because it's like it's easy to have issues in the work and then blast out a text message or an email, you know. And sometimes that's necessary because like just time is of the essence. Like I don't have time today to go talk to each person individually, so I need to shoot out an email. But then there's times where I totally can and I should. You know, and I think it's walking that line. But more than anything, like the scales have to tip more toward like, I'm here, I'm supporting you, we're face to face, you know. And then keeping in mind, like almost bringing the same compassion towards our teammates as we do like our clients. You know, we'll give so much compassion to our clients because like, oh, you're human, you make mistakes, it's okay. But then let a team member make a mistake, and it's like there's places where like that gets you fired, you know. So it's like the only people in the building allowed to be human are the clients, you know. Now granted, like we're supposed to be the healthy ones in that situation, so it's a different expectation, but we're still human, you know. So like outside of like some egregious like ethical things with like putting your hands on clients or being inappropriate with clients, most things like we can debrief, do some corrective actions or just some learning behind it. Like, all right, cool, so this is what you did, this is how it went well, this is how it didn't. If this presents again, let's maybe handle it like that and talk about that. And then like, you know, that's how we grow people.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But I think the culture has to like be conducive to that. Like it can't be like a completely like fear or like shame-based culture to where somebody is like stuck in that, to where everything has to be perfect, or like this is not going to work well, right? And so what happens is people get stuck and they either don't make a decision, or they're so stuck on like needing the higher ups approval to do this, to do that, that like things get worse, you know, because a decision needed to be made.
Yeah. And I think for me, I would like to hear from both perspectives. I know y'all both kind of, you know, been in leadership and y'all both worked under people, and that's our topic, is cultural burnout. what does that look like for someone that has been in the mental health field? Like all of us have been in the mental health field for what, 10 plus years. Mental health is tough. There's going to be some form of burnout. There's going to be some form of compassion fatigue. So I like what you said earlier, we're human, and a lot of people don't, they know we're human, but they look at us like differently, like their expectations of us is up here. So I get that from a client, but what about from a supervisor or leader or boss's standpoint? They expect so much from you, but then they don't give back. So what does that look like for the employee? How do we keep that trajectory, as we talked about, if you're not getting that support from above, or even that support with your peers? What do we need to do to continue to give support to others?
Yeah. I think the idea of like servant leadership, I think, I mean, I've even had it. I think there's this expectation as I rise up, I do less because I have people, right? And that's just not the truth. Like I didn't see that in the military. I'm sure there's some industries where that's real. It just hasn't been any that I've been a part of, and it's certainly not this field, The reality of it is the more you grow, the more is expected of you, the more you have to help people, right? Because as a therapist, when I was just a therapist in treatment, like I needed to worry about my clients and supporting my teammates, and that wasn't even a requirement, supporting my teammates. Like my job, take care of my clients, and then as you grow, then you got to like manage you got to support the clinical team, and then you grow and it's like the clinical team plus, the techs or, medical. And then as you grow, then it's that plus admissions, and, it just keeps adding and adding and adding. And so the thing is like, I've always looked at it in two things, right? I need to put people in a position to replace me, right? And that's through empowerment, that's through training, that's through support, right? Because the reality of it is, and I'm not trying to be like dark, but tomorrow's not guaranteed. And not in like I might die some sort of way, but like something could happen where I can't go to work, or I got to quit because like something's going on with my family and I got to take care of them, or, there's so many things that happen other than like the idea of like worst case scenario. But if everything is completely contingent on my presence, like I just set that whole team up for failure, so in almost every department, there should be 1 to 2, hopefully more, but at least 1 to 2 people that we're like pouring into enough to where like if I left tomorrow, they could take my role, right? And so I think investing in people is super important, and it just trickles down. So, but I can't do that just by not supporting and just laying these expectations. I mean, you could, but it's not ideal. So I think in the culture of it, like if I'm in the servant leadership thing versus like dictatorship where I'm high up, so I get to chill and kick my feet up, it's one, it's not sustainable. And 2, people could grow in that, but like the trajectory is so much slower, right? Like if I'm not pouring into that person as often as I can, their growth in 6 years might look like what it could look like in 6 months if I'm actually pouring into them, right? So my job is to make their job easier, right? And by me doing that and helping them and supporting them, they're also learning how to do my job. So when they move up, they don't necessarily need to know how to completely do my job. They need to know how to do their job at their best ability, because if they move up to that next round, their job is to make sure the person underneath them is doing the job to the best of their ability, right? And if I'm modeling this behavior of like, the serving and leadership to where we're like supporting people, doing something, everything I can to make their job easier, and then that trickles down, then they're doing everything they can for the next person's job to be easier. It creates a system and a culture to where it's conducive to so much, to healing for our clients, right? To growth for our team, for everybody getting along, everybody supporting one another, and contention and resentments in those kind of situations, I'm gonna say non-existent, but they get very minimal when you're in that kind of environment.
Yeah.
I believe, Joe, that's something valuable that you kind of brought into being a leader slash manager for us, is that you were willing to accept that you didn't know everything, and you grew a lot just in that role that you were in. And I think a lot of people, once they become managers, supervisors, so on and so forth, forget that aspect. They get to this place to where I know everything, this is how it should be ran. And so there's no flexibility in that.
Yeah.
One thing that was also valuable for us was our staff meetings, and there were more open staff meetings, not just about numbers and clients, but just about how are we doing and
Mhm.
what do we need. And I think seeing the work being done from those meetings is like, oh, I'm not just talking, like they're actually trying to make change is also important as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
I think I want to add on to that too is being able to be creative. That was something that was extremely important for me because I felt like I was stifled in a lot of places, and your mannerisms allowed me to open up different perspectives that I didn't realize and stuff. So that creativity that ultimately helped our clients was a very valuable piece and very important. And I do feel like a lot of managers either forget that or they have it and they don't want to share that piece of it
Mhm.
because talk about the fear, what if this
Yeah.
person does more than me? What if this person does take
Yeah.
over my job? And that leads into resentment. It leads into
Mhm.
resentment from the supervisor's standpoint, from the employee's standpoint. So that was really important for me. So like Alicia said, just being in there and being able to express yourself. Now we did come in there and we're like, oh heck, like what's going on today? There's some times we're like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
you got a look on his face, but you would do that stuff on purpose too,
Yeah.
like to make us. But it was good. It felt good.
But it was
So
Here's
still
the
a
thing,
safe
man. Like
space,
that's genetic. I can't do nothing about that. It's resting Joe face. Like,
no,
but
it
when I
ain't.
start
That's
talking, I liven up. I just liven
that's
up.
arrested intimidation. He tried
Yeah.
to. For me, he couldn't get to me, so he tried every day. I was
That's not true. I
like,
got you. That's not true.
something else you said though, when we talked about culture, but what we didn't touch on is the burnout part. And something that you
Mhm.
said really stood out to me was that we're supposed to be okay, right? But we know in reality we're not always okay,
No.
especially when you're working in inpatient facilities where you're working nonstop. You might be on call the same night you had a long day already, and
Mhm.
you're on the way home, and you get a call, and you got to turn right back around, right? And so that can definitely lead to burnout. Can lead to a lot more things than burnout, but that being one of those things. And so it's really important to also note like the culture that you have in the workplace also plays a role in how the staff, how the therapists are handling this burnout. Is it a space to where, you know what, I'm feeling so bad that I'm not even sure if I can function at work today. Like I need someone to cover me, or, I need to check in to let my manager know like what's going on with me. So how do you think, well, what is your experiences with burnout, and how do you think people you can't avoid burnout, but lessen their chances of burnout as often?
Yeah. Um, so before I touch on that, there was a couple of things Tamika said I wanted to circle back to. So I think this idea of like leaders having to know everything or having like control over everything and struggling with creativity, whether it's because they can't do it or they're intimidated by people that can. I just think it's opposite. I think it's opposite of that, whether that's just for me or something that I was taught or whatever. But I think if Tamika's with working with me, right, and if I've put Tamika in a position where she could take my job, there is no more clear indication I did a good job as a leader than the person that's next to me can take my job, right? And if I'm insecure about that, to where like I got to throttle them or hide them or like shut them down, that's my own stuff. That's my own insecurities. That's my own lack of self-confidence. Because the reality of it is if my team is shining, I'm shining. And I've never understood that where leaders feel like they have to stifle people and then they like create chaos so they could go in and fix it and say, look what I did. It wouldn't work without me. And it's like, I can't comprehend that. I've experienced it. I've seen it, but so I know it's real, but it doesn't compute for me, it's because it's the absolute opposite, like if my team is shining, that is a representation of me, and it's a different culture. It's a different vibe for everybody on the team, versus like me stifling people and then having like these chaoses that I got to clean up and fix and correct. And like, I had to go in there and straighten them out versus I don't need to go in there and straighten them out. I need to go in there and support them. But like my team is like killing it. And that's a reflection of me, whether it's completely everything I'm doing or I'm just a part of that process, you know? So that just doesn't make sense to me. So I think that leading back into like the burnout thing, I think that expedites burnout, you know, because you got to think about what it's like trying to navigate that when like I'm trying to figure out who I want to be in my career and in my place in this company or like in the world, and like I got to navigate the person that should be supporting and promoting me, not promoting me like a job, but like promoting me to do better. They're my number one navigation piece. Like I got to navigate around that all the time and deal with clients and deal with staff and deal with family and bills, and like life doesn't stop, you know? And so balancing all that is challenging. So I feel like the culture of a company and a team adds to the burnout, right? And I think compassion fatigue is where a lot of us see it at first, right? I ain't gonna say the most, but I think that's some of our earliest signs is if I get to a place to where like I got a client in front of me and they're struggling or they're processing some stuff and like, and I'm going through the motions, but internally I'm like, I could care less what you're saying right now. Like that's a sign. Or like, you know, I'm not doing anything in the moment and I see in my phone or on a thread or whatever, hey, so and so's having a hard time, and that's my client or somebody I got rapport with, and my thought is like, well, let me let somebody else take care of it, right? Or let me go find to act like I'm doing something busy. I think that's an indication that burnout is present, right? And that's what it was like for me. Like when I left one of my positions, there was a lot of factors, but the biggest factor was that I got to the point to where it took effort for me to care, not only just for clients, but also for like my team, you know, whereas before somebody's like, hey, I don't know what to do with this. I'm like, go, let's work that out. Let's get it. When it's like, I don't really know what to do with this. And it was like, internally, I was like, I don't care, you know? And that just wasn't a good place. You know, there's no one's going to benefit from that. And so I think having people that we can lean on for that support, you know, is also helps keep burnout out of the way, you know, whether it's a peer supervisor situation, whatever. And it's like, you know, sometimes it's just is what it is. Like, we don't need this complete break, but sometimes it's just for that moment or that situation. Like, yo, I have nothing to offer right now. Can you step in and handle this for me?
Yeah.
Got you. You know, that's what we need to hear in that moment. I got you. Not how we're not meeting expectations, how this might not be the place for us. Or I've heard it a few times, like, are you taking your meds? What?
Yeah.
Why is that your business, first of all?
Exactly.
You know, and yeah, so I mean, burnout can happen for so many reasons. It's not always work related. You know, sometimes life is stressful. You know, sometimes finances are stressful, relationships are stressful. You know, sometimes it's none of that, and it's just life happening to a family member because they're older or whatever, or they have like health issues, and at that time it's escalating, you know, and everything else is fine. My bills are paid, my internal household is good, my job is dope and everything like that. But for example, say my uncle has like this disease, and at that time, like things are really in question. And that's the thing that's like completely taking me off track. And if I don't have people I can lean on just so I can like kind of throttle back and like take care of myself, then that's going to trickle into everything else. And the next thing you know, I'm finding issues at home, I'm finding issues at work. When the reality of it is, I just need a little bit of ability to like throttle back so I can like just process what's going on with my uncle.
There's a lot of things that kind of popped up to me, but I want to ask both of you guys, and I want to start with Alicia. Like, how do you get somebody to advocate if they are experiencing what you talked about, the compassion fatigue, the stress, the burnout? What would you tell somebody how to advocate for themselves? Not tell, but how would you have them advocate for themselves if they're starting to feel those? And then it's also hard too to talk to someone and feel judged, like, oh, they think I can't handle my job, or they think I can't do this. So how do you advocate for yourself if you're experiencing that?
You almost have to do a little bit of reverse psychology as a therapist.
Yeah, right.
Like, do you want me to be effective in my job? Do you want me to, you know, continue to support my team the way I've supported them? Do you want me to be my best? Well, right now I don't feel my best, and I'm struggling in these things, and maybe I have, like you said, Joe, home stuff that's going on that's really starting to trickle into work, and I don't want that to be the case, and I feel like I need to take a break, take a couple of days, and really regroup. So I think just recognizing like where is the stress, where is the burnout stemming from,
Mhm.
first of all, and how it's affecting you as not only a person, but how it's affecting you in your professional life and at home and all those things. And actually, like just being honest about it with whomever you're talking to about it. But in this regard, I'm assuming we're talking about work. Um, and it's so difficult because as a therapist, I was thinking, like, okay, we deal with burnout and then we create this community of people that help support us. And then when that community shifts, like family dynamics, right? The slice of the pie is no longer a part of the pie. And so now I got to shift again, that's going to cause me burnout as well. And so
Mhm.
I think just recognizing like how important a team is as well, and just say, you know what, Tamika was a person that I really relied on or was really supportive for me. And now that she's no longer here, like I'm struggling a little bit to find a space and a place to um, talk to someone about when I'm having a bad day. And
Mhm.
so just, depending on what it is, it could be anything. It could be, it's almost like you're grieving a family member because they're no longer there. And that's just an example, but I think just being honest with yourself, recognizing that the things that you used to be like, you used to be more empathetic, or you used to get your notes done in a timely manner, and now you're like 2, 3 weeks behind. Well, what's really going on? Is it because you had a busy couple of weeks, or is it because you're just not motivated to do it anymore?
Mhm.
Wonderful.
I mean, I think for me, it's neither. Like, I hate notes.
Just don't want to do
I mean,
I
like,
don't
if
want
there
notes
was
right
one
now.
thing I could change about being a therapist, it's like no notes. But no, I agree, and I think I completely agree. What I would like to add to that is that, like, not all the time is there like a, and it's not even like an environment, but it is sometimes, right? But sometimes it's not an environment thing where somebody feels comfortable saying that, and I think in those situations, you got to have somebody, like if I'm not in a position for myself where I feel like I could go to my boss, regardless of how they are, right, and advocate for myself. If there's at least somebody on the team, a peer, right, which is a little manipulative, but if I'm not in a place to do that, but I talk to this person, and we know how to read people. It's like, I'm not comfortable going to Alicia about this, but I am comfortable going to Tamika. I know if I tell Tamika I'm struggling,
Mhm.
she's going to go tell Alicia. And my hope is at that point, Alicia's going to come check in on me, right? Again, it's manipulative, but if I'm not in a confident enough situation to go straight to, Alicia, then it just is what it is. But also in that, like me just coming to Tamika, like might solve it. She might be like, hey, you're struggling. Like here's some areas in which I got some free time over the next day or two to like help you out, right? Or hey, like, you're on the verge of burnout and you got X amount of groups over the next 4 days. Let me get your groups for you, right? So that gives you some more hours each day to like take care of that. And the thing is, like, that's going to come back around, and it doesn't have to be like, oh, well, next week I'll get you, because it's going to come back, and then there's going to be a time where Tamika's like, yo, I'm done, and she shouldn't have to then, manipulate the situation by, remember, I got your groups. It should be like, hey, when I was struggling, you jumped in for me, so I'm gonna get you, right? And I think that's part of that reciprocity in a team. And that's also, once again, contingent on like culture, and the thing is like, it's not a tit for tat. You got a group for me today, so I can take a break. So you have to take mine tomorrow. Well, that's not, that doesn't really like help me stay in a sustained, like, rest. If it's only a couple hours and tomorrow I'm right back to the grind. But if you got me for a few days and then there's going to come a time where you're feeling burnout, then I can jump in. Right. But I think, outside of that though, I think culture affects that to where like we don't feel comfortable going to that person saying I need help, right? I need a break, I need this, that, and other. Because like Alicia was saying, like if I say, hey, you want me to be at the best right now, I'm not. Okay, so we need to look at replacing you, because at the end of the day, it's a business, and unfortunately, some people focus too much from that mindset. If we could just like take care of people, like it would save the company so much money. Because to like, I can't remember the exact numbers, but let's say we lost Tamika because of burnout, right? The time to replace her, the retraining, this, that, and other, the man hours during all that was like, I think she said it was like $80,000, right? Probably a little higher. I'm probably going a little higher, but it was a lot to where we were like, man, that's like a pretty good salary. We just spent or wasted or lost in a few months just trying to fill and retrain his position, versus the idea of like, hey, maybe we like just dial down the census a little bit, just one or two, or dial down Tamika's caseload, just one or two for a few weeks, and let her like recharge. And yeah, we're going to lose some revenue on that, but like the team stays consistent. Then like we show support for the team and this, that, and other. So it's like, let's say throttle and the census is the same amount of loss, right? So do I want to lose 80 grand because I referred a few clients to another center where they're going to get care, right? It's not like we're leaving somebody out in the streets to just not get well, right? I refer them somewhere else because right now I just need this place to be a little less hectic, a little less chaotic with like full caseloads, right? So then Tamika can have a break. So do I want to lose that 80 grand while these people are still getting well? I'm just not getting the money from it. Or do I want to lose 80 grand because I put everything on my team, and then everybody is still in the spot, has an added I lost my word, has an added component of burnout for them because now they're having to pick up the slack of Tamika no longer being there. And the money I'm spending, main hours I'm spending training people, filling in that spot, this, that, and other. And then as soon as I get through it, because everything I just put everybody through in that time, guess what somebody else is going to say?
Yeah.
I don't know if I can do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
When I could have avoided all that by saying, let's just throttle your caseload a little bit, or let's throttle admissions a little bit, right? Because I'm going to lose money either way, but do I want to lose money and somebody still gets well? Or do I want to lose money and potentially break my team?
Yeah, lose money and lose that somebody else. My mind is like spinning because of like the different things that you guys are saying. So I'm like, it's easier said than done. Like we can say these things and tell these people like, you can do this, you can do that. There's some people that are at a different level than other people. There's some people that have a different type of confidence. I would love to be in a position where we could talk to the upper person so they can be more of a model example for their employees. Like for, just me working at that company, you guys pick up on the thing. So I wouldn't have to say a lot of the stuff. So I would be in my office and Alicia would just come sit and just give me that look. That made me feel good. Or Joe would come drop me an egg roll in the office. So I was just like, it just made me feel good because so y'all picked up on those things. So I didn't feel like I had to come to you. You already felt like, hey, maybe she's okay, but let me go in and check. I would love to train. I don't know if you can train that or if it's just something that you're born with, but be able to help bosses understand what that looks like and get out of the revenue. You can make more revenue if you have happier people, if your culture is happier.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I worked for somebody and they were pretty removed from the process, which is dope, because like in that situation, like I was the top person, like I'm supposed to make sure all this is going on, right? Your ownership, right? And them getting involved sometimes would just add to the confusion because they were fairly removed. So like there was things they didn't know, there was changes, there was this, and then like they're like, well, why are you doing this? We don't do that, like the last time they checked in was months ago. Like things have changed, And my thing is like, it's your company. I can't tell you what to do, right? But here's how this will be so much more beneficial versus coming in and getting in the mix and this, that, and other. Because there's some things like it's life. It doesn't stop. These are 24/7. This is a residential, right? So things are changing almost constantly. Maybe not on like a whole magnitude level of like we're changing all of our policies, but like there's a lot of things, So instead of doing that and adding to the confusion, adding to the stress, just what Tamika said, like just go in there and check in on these people. Even if it's like once a week, 2-3 times a month, like don't go in and be like, well, how's this going, and get into the business of it, because there's going to be stuff that's potentially shifted that you're not aware of, right? Just check in on them. How's everything going? How's your family? How's this? How's that? Right? And just in that, and then even they could see, and then maybe in that moment, for whatever reason, that person might be comfortable saying, yo, I'm really struggling. And like we're grinding and the team's good and this, that, and other, but like it's hard, and then from the ultimate top level, there's like, hey, there's something we need to adjust. And it's like, and they come to me and it's like, y'all would love to, but revenue's tight. I need 2 more bodies and we can't afford it. So how can we make some shifts to where we can do that, I think things like that will be way more supportive in those situations, and that's just like one example. There's so many other examples. Ideally, though, you would like top to bottom to be so involved to where like they would just walk through the hallway and just see a look and be like, "Oh, Tamika, what's up? Everything's good. Let's go in the office. Something seems off."
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I'm also seeing a gap in the new therapist, right? They come in not knowing what to expect,
Mm-hmm.
fresh out of school.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but LPCA, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Nobody really prepared them for
No.
what they're
No.
getting themselves into, not even just in residential, just as a therapist in general.
Yeah.
So what are some tips that you all would give them to, I guess, be a little bit more prepared? I feel like
Buckle up.
back in my day,
We want to work in the snow, uphill, both
Oh my
ways.
gosh.
Yeah.
Put it all.
Yeah. No, but that's valid. And I'll give Tamika a chance to speak. I just wanted to touch on that a little bit, but no, they don't teach us this in school, right? I remember we had a guest speaker come in during my grad class and was like, I mean, it was like a 2-hour crash course on what all you need to do to like be a private practice therapist, which not everybody wants to be in private practice, So like, what about the people that want to be, in treatment settings or rehab settings or, case management settings or whatever, right? Or something I don't even know exists, like utilization review. Like, what does that look like for somebody that wants to just fight for clients' rights and abilities to get well with insurance companies, right? There's none of that, and I think I think to a point, there's so much that we can do in our field that a class couldn't cover all that. But a lot more than the fact of like somebody just comes in and says, "Hey, if you're going to do a private practice, get a PLLC. Also, keep in mind you're going to be your own lawyer, your own accountant, your own marketer, your own this, that, and other." But it's totally possible, and you can do it, brother. Come on, man.
Exactly. For me, I think I would say be honest. I think we go to school for so long and we come in and we arrogant as I don't know what, LPCA, social work, yes, LPCA, social workers, LMFTs. We're like, oh, we've been doing this. I know it all. So being honest about what you know, being honest about what you don't know, opening your perspective. I think we're lacking on cultural humility, cultural awareness, having some knowledge in that field, you know, honing in on your ethics, and talking to people and not coming in with that just thought like I'm running the world, I can do it all, because you have some strengths, but no one gonna see the strengths over that arrogance. So I would just say be honest, and in line and network and talk to people, get different ideas, because not one person is the same. So that's what I would tell people. And for me, I came in green and scared. So now to see these newbies coming in and they just like thinking they're running, not everybody's like that, but some of them like running stuff. I'm like, all right, like Joe said, buckle up. And then I take a step back. I'm like, go for it. But just being honest.
Yeah, because it's a ride. It's an exhausting ride. The way I think about it, like your job is literally to deal with people's problems day in, day out. Like there's not much smoothness to that, I think another thing with like new therapists is understanding that they're functioning off of theory and not application, and you might know some things because school and books and assignments and you wrote papers and love that. All that's dope. And it does help. But application is very different. It's very different, and people struggle with that. Like I've had even like almost a year ago, like I'm pretty in this career, my trajectory was a little nuts, and then I got a therapist that hadn't worked with 2 clients in their whole life telling me how therapy should go. I was like, that's dope. So that's not how it goes. And these are the reasons why, still training, challenge, correct, but still train. And yeah, and I think that's hard, and the other thing is it's hard as a leader to have that conversation, because it's like, you want people to be passionate. You want people to be eager. You want all that, but it's how do I navigate this conversation without killing this person's passion or their self-esteem? but getting them to understand, you know, stuff, you have knowledge, but you don't know anything right now, right? And that's not a dig. It's just a fact of the matter, you know. It's not disrespectful to say water's wet. It's just true, you know. And you haven't worked with enough clients to say this is exactly how this needs to go, you know. And then double down on it. I think emailed or talked to one of their professors, like, yeah, my professor said. I said, okay, does your professor specialize in substance abuse and have worked in treatment centers? No. It's a little different here. You know.
No, I think that's great. And I think something you both brought up is the networking piece, like building your community is so important. That's one of the things that I struggle with because I feel like I was one of those people who went into it like, yeah, I did good at school, but I don't know anything, you know? And just like getting connected with people and having those conversations and understanding like their perspectives and learning what they're learning because no matter where you are, like the things I learned in residential don't always apply to working in the schools or working in a community mental health center. It's all going to be different. And even that client is going to be different. So just, you know, we talk about, oh, every person is different, but what does that really mean in real world? Like what it actually says, like no one is the same. Yeah, they might come with similar issues, but the way that you go about helping them is going to be totally different. And I think being humble, like you said, and having some humility about that and understanding, like, you know what, my techniques worked really well with this client, but it's not as effective on this client.
Oh
Why
yeah.
is that?
Yeah.
And questioning that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, y'all saw it, like, you know, I created a lot of like little one-off assignments and everything when we were at that program. But like, then if you went into the folder where I had them, there'd be that same assignment in like 10 different versions. Because each client is a little different. It's like, oh, I need to tweak this a little bit, or I need to tweak that a little bit. Because they are individualized, you know, and like while the idea of this assignment might work for this person, I need to adjust a couple things because they are individual, you know. But also I think this is going to sound contradictory because I said earlier, like fear and shame doesn't mix in the culture. But I think as a therapist, holding on to a little bit of fear, right? In the sense of like not being arrogant, because I've worked with a lot of trauma, you know, and I have not, and I'm glad I haven't. I have not hit that place where a new client sits in front of me is like, this is my trauma. And I'm like, I know what to do. Like, even if, let's just say for a loose example, it's like physical abuse, right? And I've worked with so many physical abuse clients, right? And a client sits in front of me and says, I went through this, that, and other physical abuse with my dad or my mom or whatever. I still have this thing in my head where it's like, what the hell am I going to do with that?
Yeah.
You know, because I don't know how it's going to work for that person.
Right.
And that's a scary thing because they're putting this on me. Like, it's my job. I need help with this. And I'm like, I don't know you. You know, like you're a new client. Like, I think that's a healthy fear to hang on to. You know, it's an awareness and it keeps arrogance at bay because like, just because I was successful with 15 other clients at a physical abuse doesn't mean that exact form was going to work with the one sitting in front of me. And I got to stay cognizant of that.
And that's what you got to keep holding on to is bring in your book smarts, bring in the knowledge that you have. But at the base of that, there's a person in front of you. And give them your undivided attention and see what works for them. Be a partner in that team, in that treatment and stuff. So that's perfect right there. They're individualized. It's the person in front of you. That's how you help them, is looking at them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think somebody that says, oh, no, exactly, you know, I can fix that. That's terrifying to me. Yeah. I've told clients before, like, well, you know, this one person said, if I go see this therapist, like they got the cure. I was like, oh my goodness, that's fascinating. They should bottle that. That's also terrifying, you know, because you have your own situation here. You know, we don't know what that looks like for you.
We've said a lot about burnout. We've said a lot about company culture or just culture in general, right? And I feel like a lot of this conversation has led us to talk about kind of the difficult or the stressful sides of being a therapist, but we've been in this for a long time, so we can't say that all the times are stressful and difficult. So what would you leave with people, just letting them know, like, you know, there are ways to work through your burnout. There is a way to kind of find balance in the things that you're doing. I know for me, one of those things is now that I have a private practice, I'm very cognizant of how I schedule clients because when I'm starting to experience burnout and I don't schedule mine, months in advance, I'm like, no, we're going to schedule like every 2 3 weeks. And that way, if I need to change my schedule because those what I've experienced in the last few weeks is telling me that I need to slow down a little bit, I have that opportunity to do so. So that's certainly one thing that has helped me, and also just doing things that I enjoy, like going on walks, whatever that looks like, hanging out with my daughter, husband, whatever. So what are some things that has worked for you all, um, and continues to work for you all over the last few years?
I can jump into that if you want me
Okay.
to jump in. Well, me, I'm honestly being honest. I've said that several times, but I'm honest with myself. I'm honest with the people in front of me. I'm honest with the people that I work with. And a part of that too is like scheduling that I know that I can make this work. Making sure my family is taken care of. I'm People tell me all the time, they like call me, you pick up on people's emotions and feelings, and you can tell what people are thinking. That's because I really stay in tune to myself and that person that is in front of me. So that's one of the things some of the things I would tell someone is just to be honest. If you're feeling a certain way, and maybe find somebody too that you trust, that you can just kind of talk to things with, work through things, laugh, joke, stuff, or work on projects with, something that gets you kind of out of that space, or out of your head space. So those are some of the things that I work on for myself, as a therapist.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say that just being open to the idea that it can shift. I feel like it's like food. Like I love food, right? That was the moment. So I love food, right? Like I like pasta, right? I like pizza. I like Cajun food. I like all kinds of foods, right? But also knowing that like just because I like chicken Alfredo and I have it every day, eventually I'm not gonna like it as much, right? I gotta change it up. I gotta try some different things. So I think it's the same thing for our self-care, Alicia said about taking walks, like I used to run. I broke my leg and now it's a whole cop out because it hurts, so I won't fight through it. But running used to be my thing, and then there was a time that it wasn't. And then it was like just going out, out in the country and like riding four-wheelers or doing this, that, and the other. And then there was times where that didn't work, and it was like, well, let me get into like a little hobby and did some like wood building stuff and things like that, or got into customizing shoes for a while, stuff like that, or just like I like shoes, so sometimes like the paint peels off, so like let me just fix that versus throwing them away and trying to buy them again. Just little activities and hobbies and interests that we actually engage in, but also understanding like sometimes it shifts and I might have to try something different, right? Today, taking the walk might not be enough, or, running is not the thing no more, or this, that, and other, and being open to that, just having options on like how we take care of ourselves, like currently, like I'm a co-sign on, y'all both said family, like I'm a co-sign both y'all. Like right now, my biggest healthcare is coming home and hanging out with the family, um, and then there was times where that wasn't enough, and nothing against my family, I like them. That's why I keep them around, all right, But it sounds like I'm so out of it, I can't even be present with them. So like, it's not that they're not enough. It's just, it's not enough for me to like recenter. Right. So then it's like, let me go in the garage, let me go do this or go do that. And then like I'm process, cause like all of that is kind of like a working meditation. Cause even though I'm doing these things, I'm still processing it through and this, that, and other. And then I set that aside and now I can go be present with my family. Now I can go be present at work, and just understanding that it's not always that things are so bad that like this job has to change, my career has to change. Maybe it's just the fact that like we need to adjust our activities that we do for self-care, because it's not that it's a bad one, just things lose their effectiveness after a while. So we do something different and then we can always circle back. And then we have this, I'm gonna be corny therapist, and we have this toolbox of coping skills,
Exactly.
but it's real. It's real.
It's so true. So, I mean, I completely concur with what you all said, the flexibility, changing it up. I mean, it's the same thing we tell our clients that not every coping strategy is going to work for everything. So it's important to have that toolbox of coping skills. Absolutely. But then sometimes it's just a matter of like not doing anything. Like
Right.
sometimes you just need to lay in the bed.
Sometimes, yeah, and binge watch. I'm not gonna do that anymore.
Well, I listen to podcasts. I love murder mystery, true crime, anything that's not there. Well, I do start to,
True
yeah,
crime.
it does become therapeutic for me too.
I was gonna say Snowfall. Like that's probably not therapeutic.
Snowfall, listen, a lot of,
Hey,
listen, it was a popular show, so.
I don't think Tamika
I
knows
haven't
of it.
seen that. No, I
Man,
haven't.
you
I
gotta
thought you
check
were
it
gonna
out.
say something else, but I ain't gonna say what that
It's good. It's
is.
good. It's really
Oh, yeah, I haven't seen that one. My thing is scary movies. I don't know. I'm so fascinated with like scary movies, but then I am that person. I need to pray to God, watch some cartoons, so I ain't
Yeah,
bringing in this
Yeah,
house.
yeah, yeah.
that is me too. I love scary movies, but I'm gonna have to turn on SpongeBob or something at
Hey,
night, close all the doors.
what you can't watch is Bluey. I've had a real experience
I
with Bluey.
love.
That dad set such an unrealistic expectation. I watch Bluey and I feel less than. Like I'm talking about that dad is dialed in. It's like, dude, I need
I
my
would have to
daughter
watch
to watch
Bluey. What's
this.
Bluey? I was thinking you were talking about that little
It's a
dog.
kids cartoon, but
Yeah,
it's
Oh,
so
he
good.
is talking about the dog.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
it's
It's
so
good
good.
though. It's good.
He
Hey,
does
girl,
it
you got a baby.
unrealistic.
Yeah,
Even the mom is like, bye. She's not even in half of the
yeah,
episode.
yeah. Yeah. Because at any time they're like, Dad, you want to play? It's like, yes. Like, bro, you're not tired.
Not yet.
Setting a
There
bad
was
precedent.
an episode where he said no, and the kids like manipulated him. It's like, why
Yeah,
don't you ever play with us?
yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh. See,
Yeah.
look at y'all. There's somebody, they were like, well, let me Google Bluey.
Mhm.
If you haven't watched Bluey, I think Bluey is more for adults than it is for kids, to be honest
Yeah,
with you.
yeah. I think that way, like some of the Disney movies and stuff, like watch like right now, like my daughter's into Moana, and like it's entertaining for her, and it's like it's designed for kids, but also like the storyline and stuff like that, like it keeps me engaged. It's like it's almost like this is made for adults as well. Like I think some of those animated or cartoon movies, whatever you want to call it, like they do a good. I think it's almost like they know that like parents are gonna have to watch this, so they do it in a way that's engaging for the kid, but also like for the adults. So it's pretty dope.
So our recommendation is to watch cartoons. If you don't watch them already, that's always a good option.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
No, but I do think this was a great conversation, even just like a part one of this conversation. I feel like we could go a lot deeper into this. And always talking about equity, more about culture, diversity, a lot of things that a lot of people are sometimes uncomfortable with talking about that truly impacts the work environment, like diversity, like equity, like equality. And so, one, I'm grateful that you came here, Joe, and gave us some of your time. I know we all want to spend time with our family right now, but I'm glad we at least get to do something that we enjoy, which is talk about important topics that are impacting us directly.
But I think that's when you know it's a good conversation, and I agree. I think there's so much other stuff we could talk about around this, like so we talked about the idea of culture and how it's beneficial and how it's not, but like we didn't talk about how you create that, right? Or if a culture is toxic, how do you change that? There's so much more to. This is a good conversation.
Well, sounds like he wants to come back, so we're more than welcome and happy to have you back, Joe.
I'll definitely come back.
Anything else you want to add, Tamika?
No, I just really appreciate your time, and definitely I love this topic. I'm always thinking about like how can you improve your work life. Like family's good, but you're right, you spend about 8 to 9 to 10 hours at work. So how do you improve that? So I love topics like that. So thank you so much for being here. It's a great topic today.
So if you all haven't already, you know what to do. Don't forget to like this video, comment down below on your experiences with your work culture, as well as burnout. If there's some strategies or tips or tools that have helped you or maybe have not helped you and you want to share them with others, please comment down below, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share this video. Joe, if you don't have anything else, we're going to let you go. We appreciate your time. And thanks, everyone.
Thank y'all.
Bye.